what we're seeing is there's two systems of law. There's one that allows Hillary Clinton to go free. Joe Biden is being investigated for having documents, some classified documents, some dating back 40 years from when he was a senator, found all over the place, including in his garage, not secured, not being properly handled. And yet he's most likely not going to be charged, yet Donald Trump is being charged.
Donald Trump is currently in the middle of his arraignment hearing. He's entered a plea of not guilty to federal criminal charges. He's been accused of unlawfully keeping national security documents after leaving office and lying to officials who tried to get them back. He faces 37 charges. Supporters have been gathering outside the court. Yeah, it is a history-making federal court appearance today in Miami for the president. Let's speak to Marc, American political advisor. He served as the director of strategic communications for the Donald Trump 2020 presidential campaign and was a former press secretary to the VP Mike Pence. Marc, good evening to you.
Good evening.
Donald Trump has pled not guilty. That won't surprise you, of course. But what do you make of these charges that he faces?
Well, I think this is, for many people, this is just the latest example of the federal government and the law enforcement prosecutorial powers of the government being used to target their political opponent. And it's something where we've seen so many instances time and time again where the law is not applied equally and fairly. One side gets a pass, the other side, if it's Donald Trump, gets indicted.
Why is the law not being applied fairly to Donald Trump?
Well, I mean, you just have to go back to 2016 when Hilary Clinton, then former Secretary of State, then a presidential candidate, was found to have 33,000 emails, government records, including classified information on a home-baked server that she had built for her in her house, which was illegal. And then when confronted with that information, she and her team destroyed the evidence, wiped servers clean, destroyed mobile devices with hammers. I mean, all of this kind of stuff, not just the fact that she had classified information, shouldn't have had it outside of a classified setting, and it was hacked and easily accessible, but then destroyed evidence.
Yeah.
I mean, those are all crimes she was not charged.
But you haven't answered my question, Marc. Why is Donald Trump being targeted? Why is he not seeing the fair side of the law? Or why won't he, you fear?
Well, what I'm saying is that, what we're seeing is there's two systems of law. There's one that allows Hillary Clinton to go free. Joe Biden is being investigated for having documents, some classified documents, some dating back 40 years from when he was a senator, found all over the place, including in his garage, not secured, not being properly handled. And yet he's most likely not going to be charged, yet Donald Trump is being charged. So it just continues this pattern over and over again, whether it was the fake Russia collusion story, whether it was the impeachment, whether it was these fake drummed up charges in the state of New York. And now we see them going after their political opponent when they're not going after or didn't go after others in the Democrat Party. It just feeds this constant narrative that there's two systems of justice here in America.
But surely if Trump is innocent, he's got nothing to worry about. You're sort of in a roundabout way saying that the US legal system is corrupt.
Well, I think there's in many cases we've seen that there's been different standards for the way different candidates and different people have been handled based on their political affiliations. I'll leave it to the president's lawyers to argue the case out. I think there are many cases, according to what I'm hearing and seeing in some publications, where he's going to have very many motions, whether it's, about the which law is the preceding law, was the search warrant done properly, was the attorney-client privilege that was waived by a district court in D.C., very liberal, was that the proper use of basically interrogating his own lawyers? So I think there's a lot of things here. It's not going to be a quick case. It's not going to be an easy case. But at the end of the day, we'll see how the justice system renders its verdict.
I've heard you speak about this case, and one of the things that you've said, and you sort of echoed it with us tonight, really, is it's all about getting a man who leads a movement. It's all about getting at Donald Trump. And you said that they're coming after all of us next. Who is they, and why are they coming after you?
Well, it's the liberal media establishment. It's the liberal bureaucrats abusing their powers. I mean, whether it was the
But it isn't
Department
the
of
liberal
Justice
media
that
establishment which has led Donald Trump to make an appearance in court today. It is the law. It's not the media. The media doesn't have control over the law. That is the whole point of a justice system.
and the liberal bureaucracy, as I was continuing to say. So you've seen the Department of Justice target parents who were to question school board officials, whether it was about COVID, whether it was about sexual material that was inappropriate for young children. They were being targeted as terrorists. We saw back in the day the Obama administration used the Internal Revenue Service to target conservative nonprofit groups. So they have been weaponizing this government, meaning the liberals. They have been weaponizing this government against conservatives for a very long period of time. I think this is one of the pinnacle examples of it. And it's something that has to be confronted. It's something that has to be fought back against. It's what Donald Trump talks about. It's what really everyone in the America First movement and even many in the conservative movement are talking about, saying if we're going to have rules, then it's going to and laws, then they're going to apply to everyone equally and not just when it's the preferred political party going against their opponents.
Yeah. And that is something, isn't it? Sort of going after the legal system is really something. It does stoke up the arguments. It does mean that, people within families, American people sitting on different sides of the political divide fall out with each other. And, here we sort of stoke up anger and dissent. And I just wonder whether it's time for America to get past that.
Well, I mean, I think I wouldn't disagree with you on that as a general thought, but I think what we have to do is eliminate it. And one of the examples that I would use, go back to the time shortly after the Dobbs decision, which overturned the abortion laws here in the United States. There were protests, there were threats, there were people outside of the conservative justices' homes. That is illegal. It's against federal law to be picketing outside of a judge's home trying to influence the outcome of a case. Did the current Biden administration do anything to protect those conservative justices? They didn't arrest the protesters. They sent some people to make sure they stayed peaceful and tried to keep somewhat away, but they were violating the law. Can you imagine if Republicans had stormed outside of Ruth Bader Ginsburg's house? I mean, it would have just been anarchy, and they would have all been thrown in jail in shackles. I mean, we see these kinds of things over and over again. And I think for too long, people have been turning the other cheek, taking the high road. And now at this point, they're like, we're done. It's got to be stopped.